The apartments were all connected like those twin houses that had the same interior that we had. The first sign was when I stayed home because of a bad sunburn and decided to draw while the others had fun on the beach. I was annoyed because in the apartment next to us, the children were running in the stairs all day long, but I decided to leave it at that. After a few hours, the family came back and I told them how annoying those kids were, and they were looking at me like I had 3 heads. Apparently, the neighboring apartment was still as empty and locked as the time we arrived a few days ago. We shrugged it off, had a fun day, and then the night came. Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. Today I am going to be reading some of your terrifying stories to you today, and I am very excited, so let's get into it. This story comes from the time we moved into a new house when I had just started middle school in South Central Kentucky. I do want to mention I've always had paranormal experiences since I was a kid, but this particular time we moved in with my grandma. We had family over to check out our new place, and we did bring a Ouija board into the house, which was not a good idea. I remember my mom, grandma, aunt, and uncle playing around with it. They all left and it was late. It was our first night in the house. Our kitchen had those cold porcelain tile floors where you could hear anything on, even yourself walking. We all slept in one big bed, me, my mom, my grandma, and my younger brother. I think we were all a little bit scared. Where we were, our place was surrounded by cornfields. We didn't have a fan that night, but I could remember talking in bed and making each other laugh. As soon as we went quiet, we heard the sound of our dining room chairs being dragged across the floor slowly. No one else was there. We'd immediately turned on the lights, and no one wanted to go check it out, so we went together, and all the chairs were in different places in the kitchen. That's how our first night went. The story goes on to other encounters, but I'll leave it at that for now. I think we barely slept that night. Oh my gosh, I want to hear more. That always scared me so bad in like scary movies when they would just show the kitchen chair sliding. Like I think it happened in the Conjuring movies. I don't like it. It happened in Paranormal Activity. I think that's where my fear stems from. So for this story, they told me like the actual story and then they did a follow-up of more detail, so I'm gonna read both. My name is Alex and I live in a historic old town that's only around 1.5 square miles big. I've inherited some sort of psychic abilities from my mom. My mom likes to call her unique abilities a strong intuition. She always grew up around spirits and has been sensitive to people's moods. She even once predicted a car crash of her friend. I myself have strong gut feelings and visions that come true and manifest themselves. I've predicted several things about close friends of mine. I've been sensitive and aware of spirits around me. My town, located in New Jersey, was founded in the 1880s. It was a small town for the local factory workers to live in. The factory has since been torn down. My town has also had famous explorers visit way before it was properly inhabited by these factory workers. The river that flows through and divides the town in half, connected by a bridge, is named after him. At one point, a Native American tribe inhabited these lands and artifacts of theirs were found while building our town. In the mid-1900s, the town expanded over the bridge and therefore property was bought from the next town over and added to our town. This is the side of town that I live in. My particular house was built in 1954 and to our knowledge had at least 2 previous families who have owned it. Now when my parents bought this house and moved in when I was a toddler, that family that had owned it before us was a bit weird. Their rooms were also weirdly decorated. Story was that they adopted children and had very much mistreated one of them, a little girl, who was seriously hurt as a result. This might explain why my bedroom has the most activity. I believe personally that there is anywhere from 2 to 4 spirits that haunt my home. If it's okay with you, I'd like to delve into my experiences that I've dealt with them. And of course I said yes, so here was their follow-up. So as I said, there's 2 to 4 spirits. There's a motherly type spirit. So for context on what just happened, I have a gash on my foot, like a literal gash, and I'm not wearing socks, which honestly, my bad, okay? But I'm sitting in the floor and I didn't know that Gigi was there, and she could have grabbed anywhere on my body and sunk her claws into that gash. So I apologize for the guttural scream. I'm gonna restart the second half. There's a motherly type spirit who protects me and many of my friends have seen her. She always watches over me but seems like she either can't or won't communicate despite numerous attempts. I have a feeling the letters M and E have to do with her name and I've attempted to recently communicate with her. She has neat hair and a big poofy dress as well as a fair smile and crossed hands, as if she's stuck in time posing for a Victorian era photo. I have the feeling that she's potentially a maid, a nanny, or had children of her own or wished to have some. Maybe she was the eldest sibling in her family. I always get the sense that she's always watching and is a caregiver. There is for sure a younger age spirit, possibly a female, maybe anywhere from 4 to 12. I've seen a white misty blob in the shape and height of a small child dart across the room floor by the foot of my bed. I've also heard toy box music and had a child's handprint appear on the bathroom mirror. The spirit may or may not be responsible for many toys and small trinkets and other belongings of mine going missing. There's also a rambunctious and taunting spirit who is not harmful but is playful and antagonizing. I have the feeling that this is a young male. He'll run up and down the stairs but never proceed down the hallway, just tease me by stomping up and down very fast. I've heard him whispering my name being called and other voices. Things have been knocked over and cold spots are felt in the basement and my bedroom. It's often hard to pinpoint which spirit is up to that. I've recently done 2 egg cleanses on myself as well as burned sage around the house. My spirits are quite vocal and like to make themselves known but rarely show themselves. I've only ever felt ill twice as a result of them. I think I triggered them by watching YouTube videos of a medium and her haunted doll. The most they've done to me physically is poke my back and my head repeatedly while I had my back turned and was trying to sleep on my bed. I honestly found this encounter amusing. Since I've grown up with them, they don't bother me. They only jump scare me occasionally by appearing in the corner of my eye and running away or suddenly making a noise. Being home alone is not really home alone, and they seem to be most active when I'm around. I wonder who they are and why they are connected to my home. My foot is throbbing. It hurts so bad. Do you want to lay down? You don't want to lay down? Why not? Am I bothering you by sitting here? That's rude. We were on a big family vacation in Italy. There was my father, his sister, and her husband, plus us, their children, my sister, my 2 cousins, my brother, and me. The apartment had one bigger room downstairs and a kitchen/living room area where David was sleeping, and a smaller room upstairs where my sister, my cousin, and I were sleeping. The apartments were all connected like those twin houses that had the same interior that we had. The first sign was when I stayed home because of a bad sunburn and decided to draw while the others had fun on the beach. I was annoyed because in the apartment next to us, the children were running in the stairs all day long, but I decided to leave it at that. After a few hours, the family came back and I told them how annoying those kids were, and they were looking at me like I had 3 heads. Apparently, the neighboring apartment was still as empty and locked as the time we arrived a few days ago. We shrugged it off, had a fun day, and then the night came. We went to a bar, and we were still sober enough when we got home. After we arrived at the apartment, David decided to sleep. Us girls were talking upstairs. The only bedside lamp on, and we heard a strange noise, like a dog downstairs was lapping up water. It was very loud. We thought it was only David being very messed up. We laughed at him and went down only to see he was sleeping. We went back to our room and heard the lapping sound again. We've had enough and went down to tell him to stop doing that. We woke him up and he got very scared, telling us that he was sleeping for real. David got his bedsheets and came up with us to sleep on the floor upstairs. We were scared, like really scared, but tried to be brave. The bedside lamp's light started to twitch. It went out and then came back, again and again. David lost his absolute mind and jumped between Dora and me. He started to pray and the light went out completely. I found my phone and called Dad 3 times. The first 2 times the voice said that the line was engaged, but the 3rd time he picked up and came for us to help. He said he was sleeping, and as soon as I called him, he picked up the phone. We ran downstairs, only to find that the key was not in the lock. It was strange because we always leave the keys in the back, so it added to our fear. In the end, my sister found it under the pull-out couch David was sleeping on and ran out of the apartment. We spent that night in the downstairs room of our parents' apartment. Dad showed me his phone and it only showed 1 single call from me. The other 2 were nowhere. We couldn't wait to leave that place. I'm from Western Kentucky and I grew up in a small town where nothing really spooky happened. I grew up in that town and lived on a road called Willow Drive. It wasn't a dead-end road, but it only had 7 houses on it and still does to this day. The house that I grew up in was built by my grandparents. It was a 2-story home, and we know for a fact no one lived in that home before us. No one has ever passed in that home, but I do believe the land was haunted somehow. When I was around 5, I was outside playing at the side of the house that my room was on. I was getting ready to run inside when something told me to look up at my window. When I did, I noticed a piece of cardboard up in the window with writing on it. Of course, at this time, I was very young, so I couldn't read. I don't know what the sign said, but I wish I could remember it to remember what it said. Also, while this cardboard was in the window, I saw fingers on the side of the sign like it was holding it. So I rushed inside, expecting my mama to be in the room trying to scare me. She did that a lot, but it wasn't her. Once I realized it wasn't my mama, I told her what I had seen. She thought I was making things up at first until she realized I was being as serious as a 5-year-old could be. We both went upstairs expecting to find this cardboard sign still in the window, but there was nothing. We looked behind everything trying to find this sign, but we never found it. So we go on about our lives, and a couple years later, my aunt, which was my mama's sister, had passed away. Months had gone by after her passing, and I was standing in the bathroom brushing my hair. I looked in the mirror, and when I did, I noticed my hair looked like it was being pulled up from the side. Like someone was there on my temple and was pulling the side of my hair up out of my face. It couldn't have been from brushing, because when you brush your hair, it falls down. It wouldn't have been pulled up like that. So me being a kid, I dropped the brush, ran downstairs, told my mama what had happened. She immediately said it was probably just my aunt. I do believe she was right, because my aunt and I had a strong bond, and I was her favorite niece. She loved my hair when she was alive and would always be running her fingers through it. Here's my third story, and I have way more, but I'll leave the ending with this one. At this same house, there was a hill in the backyard that my cousins and I would always play on. While we were running down the hill, you know, which kid runs faster, that type of game, well, I cheated and took off before my cousins. So I turned around to see if they were running behind me, and I noticed they weren't. There was a tall, over 6 foot, all black cloak, kind of like the Grim Reaper. You couldn't see hands. Where the face should be, underneath the hood, there was no face. It was all black. It was standing next to my cousin, but was facing me. I turned around and turned back around, and it was gone. I told my cousin, but he just said I was crazy. Later in life, I found out that the Grim Reaper looking thing was around because it was feeding off all the trauma that I was going through. I was born into a life of pure hell, and that negative energy knew it. It was there since the day I was born, feeding off of it, getting stronger because of me. I still have it around me today, but it doesn't get nearly as much energy off of me as it used to. I know how to protect myself. I still haven't figured out how to get rid of it, but I will, and it knows I will, because when I talk about getting rid of it, crazy stuff happens. So that was 3 stories. I said I would stop at 3, but how about one more? Yes! I live in a trailer, and after my first was born, I was 8 months pregnant with my middle daughter. I'd be sitting on the couch where you could see down the hallway. I kept seeing what looked like a child with blonde hair but blurred out face keep poking its head around at me. It was almost like it was playing peekaboo. I never told anyone what I saw in that trailer, just because I wanted to see if anyone else would see or catch what I saw. And someone did. They explained exactly what I had seen, but with their own eyes, and they asked me if I'd ever seen it, and I immediately said yes, but never told anyone. That same person would be at my house while my husband was at work, and our kids would play with each other, while all of the kids were down for a nap, and my friend and I kept hearing a child crying. Every time we would go check on the kids, they would be sound asleep. We believe it was this little kid. I wish I could go back to communicate with the child's spirit, but I can't because of the new owners. I wish I could have dug up more information on that trailer. Those were sad. There's a lot of sad ones this round. Anyways, that is all for this week, and I thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week for a few more videos. Bye.
Oh, he's so handsome. What are you doing, Buds? What are you doing, huh? What? Hi. You are too handsome. You're too handsome. You're too handsome.